Welcome back to Curiosity, Not Judgment. I hope you're having a great week. My name is Birga.
And I'm Gary.
So the big question of the day is, do you know how to listen?
What did you say?
Exactly. I have to say that we are in an increasingly distracting world, and I often struggle to truly listen. It is something that you have to be purposeful to do. Sometimes you might need a refresher on how to do it. You may need some coaching all the way around in order to make sure that you are truly listening with the intent to hear rather than the intent to respond. And I think today is a really good opportunity for us to revisit the topic of, do we know how to listen?
I think there's levels of listening. And this is something that I'm continuously working on and I'm still not great at. But there are times when I'm good at it. And it's usually those times when I'm very motivated. Like when I'm talking to one of my, these days, small grandchildren. Seeing how I can be a help and an encouragement and how can I be helpful to them? Who can I be? What do they need from me in this scenario? But there are times when it doesn't pay to listen like that, right? If you've got the news on in the background, if you've got the radio on while you're driving to work, you're supposed to be concentrating on something else.
True.
And so I think that we get in the mode of different listening levels, and I'm wondering how intentional we are with that. Let's say we had a 1 through 3, and 3 was just there's something on in the background. It's not important if I miss something. 2 is this is a salesman or somebody who I'm trying to gather information. They're trying to tell me something, but if I miss something, it's not going to be the end of the world. 1 is I'm trying to do relationship building. I'm trying to do trust building. I mean, I'm just coming up with those 3 levels. But are we intentional about which listening mode we're in? And is it obvious to the other person?
I think not only does this apply to listening, but it also applies to reading, because I can think kind of those 3 levels, as I can think about those 3 levels as well when it pertains to communication that you receive. Is this an advertisement email trying to get your attention? Woohoo, look at me, buy my thing. Is it somebody trying to really communicate a point that they need your engagement in? They need you to take action on this political matter. They need you to take action on signing this petition, whatever, or is it relationship building? And so I can also see that being applicable in that realm. Though you're reading rather than listening, it's kind of the same thing, right? You're trying to absorb information in a way to process it. The difference being that when you are engaged in a vocal dialogue with somebody, they see your facial expressions, they see how you're responding, they see whether or not you're, looking at your watch, you're yawning, whatever you're doing. And so you've got that much more intensity. But I think how we absorb information, I think that scale that you put forward is probably valid in both sides.
I think it is. And if you run a simple test to see what it should be and to be intentional about it, and I'll give you a prime example in my life, is answering your cell phone. I will answer a cell phone on 3, I'll think about the situation on 2, and I should never answer my cell phone on 1. If you're talking to a small child and the phone rings and you answer the phone, you are telling that small child, whether you intend to or not, that the phone is more important than they are. And so if you're in relationship building, I would say you shouldn't answer your phone. Or if you're waiting for a very important phone call, you set that expectation up front. I want to be in a rich conversation with you, but I am waiting for this one phone call. If so-and-so only calls, we all have caller ID now, then I'm going to stop the conversation and do that. If it's somebody else, I'm not even going to worry about it. And I think that in and of itself builds a level of trust because you're setting expectations. Whether you do it on level 2 or not is your decision. If you're a very polite person, and I read something every morning that says, the I am statements, here's what I want to be. And if I want to be a gentleman, if I want to be somebody who respects others, I would do that even if I was talking to a car salesman. I would say, you know what, excuse me, I need to get this, let me take that. Right. I'll be right back to you. This conversation is important to me. I'll be right back to you. Yeah. But how often do we do that? I mean, I watch people walking through, Walmart with a phone glued to their head, not even paying attention to the cashier, and if they ask them a question, it's a hassle. That's a human being, and we should have some level of interaction with people. I think we've talked about this before, but that's a level 2 conversation. But I think we should be intentional about what we're doing and run a few tests like that.
Yeah.
Do I get distracted? Do I look at my watch? Do I look over the person's shoulder for somebody more important to talk to at the party? Right? Is that a 3, a 2, or a 1?
Yeah.
And because they're going to figure that out.
Certainly, certainly. And I think the curious part of all this is when you establish your level about how deeply engaged in conversation you want to be, could moving it up a step make all the difference in the world to the person with whom you're engaging? I'm thinking,
most of the time, the answer is yes.
Right. I'm thinking of a little story I heard from somebody else recently about being in an airport restroom. Needing to very quickly exit a flight and get into a restroom. And there was a cleaning woman in the entrance of the restroom. And this woman passes her and acknowledges her and says, "Hi, how are you?" or something along those lines, and quickly goes into the stall. And then hears a voice saying, "You're a nice lady," and trying to figure out who's talking to who. And the end of the story is this cleaning woman had been so used to being dismissed that even that level 3 engagement of acknowledging somebody on their way by into a toilet stall made a drastic difference in their day.
Absolutely. You find that with homeless people on the street who most people ignore and dismiss. If you look them in the eye and say hello, what a difference it makes to them. I know a lot of folks, including myself at certain times, depending on how distracted and how much in a hurry I am, will just, I don't want to deal with this right now, and just kind of move on by because they might engage back. But absolutely true, and people understand that. I tell you, I rue the fact that I have memories of, when I was running a medical services company, and I would run through the lobby hoping that nobody in the lobby catches my eye and wants to talk to me, and how, I was going to say terrible that is, and how that's not who I wanted to be at the time.
Right.
At the time, I wanted to be a person who was not running to my next event to the point where I couldn't stop and have a conversation in the lobby with a customer. And how do we be more intentional? I think that's one of the underlying foundations of all these talks is how can we be more intentional about what we're doing?
Well, let's assume for a moment we've got a bunch of high-profile people listening or watching to this, and they're relating to your story about having to run through the lobby because they just don't have the time to engage. If you are a tremendously busy person or somebody who has lots of folks vying for your attention, how can you just take one step closer to intentionality when your time and your budget for that level of engagement really is limited?
I'm thinking about a person I had a meeting with yesterday, very prominent person in Albuquerque, very much responsible for some of the revitalization of, not downtown specifically, this is more Old Town, but really involved in some of the good things that are going on in Albuquerque right now. And this person is extremely busy. But when they saw me, I very clearly saw a body shift in my direction, a warm shake of the hand, a look in the eyes, and it was just the whole micro inequities, the whole body language, the whole everything was, I am very busy, but I am yours.
I see you.
For this allotted period of time for this meeting. And you are very important to me. And he said so. Hey, Gary, haven't seen you in a while. What are you up to? You're very important to me, and I'm looking forward to this meeting. And what a difference that makes.
Oh yeah.
For anyone.
Sure, it makes you feel valued.
It makes you feel valued and listened to. And somebody that you've got their full attention.
Yeah.
So even if you're super, super busy, the least you can do is remove distractions for certain periods of time by either delegating phone calls or, again, setting the expectation. I'm waiting for this one phone call back. It's very critical to what I'm doing. I'm going to take it, but nothing else.
Yeah.
You're important to me. And I think that's, so slicing up your time into manageable chunks And there was a great book called Margin, written by a guy who really talks to making sure that you have passing periods between your meetings,
Right.
that you have the time to where if someone stops you and needs something, that you're actually going to be able to stop and have that time. Because if you're running back to back, today feels like one of those days, by the way. If you're running back to back to back to back to back on things, then people are going to, whether you want them to or not, whether it's your intention or not, you're too busy for them.
Right. Feel dismissed. Yeah, and certainly as we've transitioned to not all, but primarily online meetings, online work, workforce all over the country or all over the world, how do you build in margin for those sidebar conversations? It's next to impossible in many of these situations. And if you look at your digital calendar and you've got a 10 o'clock, an 11 o'clock, a 12 o'clock, and maybe you've given yourself 15 minutes to cram a sandwich in your face, there are no sidebars that are going to take place in a schedule like that.
And then you become like the doctor's office syndrome, where you start getting behind in your day and then you can never catch up.
Right.
So putting blocks of time in your calendar that are there for catch up, writing some notes from that meeting you were just in, and you took some action items and now you will forget. And for overlap. I mean, sometimes you're in a meeting, it happened to me today, where, you know what, the subject was so important and we finally were making progress that we went over into the next meeting, way over. And so how do we build in time in our schedules? I know people who are successful at doing 50-minute meetings. So they make sure they've got at least 10 minutes. And by the way, if people know and are used to the fact that, or are very clear that at 10:50 you're going to go away, there's the old adage that the last 5 minutes of the meeting is when all the decisions get done, and everybody's kind of like, okay, what are we doing for next steps, and what's the next action, and making all those decisions. Well, if that starts at 10:45 versus 10:55, you're probably going to get a better meeting, even if you have to go over a couple of minutes. At least they're there.
Yeah. So let's consider another possibility, which has played out in my house a number of times. When you're the one trying to get the attention, and maybe you've got a teen, or it doesn't even have to be a teen, anybody in your home, that the cell phone is much more interesting than you are. You're trying to engage in conversation. There's this awkwardness about, how do I get them to engage with me and prioritize me over the device? How do we break down some of those barriers? And I can think very clearly through some of the responses. If there's a direct ask, can you please put down your phone and talk to me? That does not get the desired attitude.
No, but I think that if, again, this is back to intentionality and hey, listen, I need your full attention for a conversation. When would that be convenient for you?
Without sarcasm.
And let them set the time. Well, when one of my kids does that to me, I instantly feel a tinge of guilt, like, oh, you have to set an appointment with me now? I will tell you this, though. I used to have, and I think we may have talked about this before, I used to set up one-on-ones with each of my kids and take them to lunch and take them out of school, just so we would have some alone time to discuss things, and it turned out to be magic. But giving them the option. The problem is I know what I do is I come up to somebody and say, I need your full attention right now. Put down your phone. Well, that's not going to get the right response. But
Right.
if you come up and say, look, hey, do you have a couple seconds? Okay, look, I need about 10 minutes to discuss with something. Now that in itself is fraught with problems because, you can be efficient with things. You can't be efficient with people. You have to be effective with people. And as the old saying goes, and so planning 10 minutes, okay, I want to break up with you. Can I have 10 minutes? That doesn't work, right? So
Maybe don't lead with the I want to break up with you.
So maybe you say, okay, I need about 10 minutes of your time. May go over, but can you give me a 10-minute block of time when it's convenient for you, where you won't have any distractions? You don't have to say the phone.
Yeah.
Where you just won't have any distractions, and we can talk.
Yeah. So have we come to that point even when we're in our family setting, in the living room, people are distracted on their devices? Have we gotten to that point where we have to set up appointments?
Listen, it doesn't bother me to set up an appointment because I'm looking for a certain outcome. And I have very big problems with trying to control the situation and the issues and the relationships and even them.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, giving them some control, as much control as possible, making sure that they feel safe and that they feel listened to and that they feel, you know, all those things. I don't mind bending over backwards to do that. It's not an affront to me. I don't think we can expect in this day and age that someone can give you their full undivided attention whenever you want it.
Sure. Well, and I think this is a really good place to exercise curiosity, not judgment, because if the assumption is they're always on their phone, they're always distracted, oh, they're probably just watching TikToks, whatever the assumption is, the judgment is, you may be wrong. And there may be something, I can think of a situation where there was a question of maybe a medical problem. And so the person on the phone is looking through signs and symptoms of this medical problem. You're assuming they're engaged in something entertaining and you are vying for their attention, but they're distracted because of a fear of something else that's going on. And so that jumping to a conclusion about what that person is engaged in could have a lot of detrimental consequences for the relationship at large, and especially in a moment that's already fraught with some anxiety on both ends.
And we have to be careful not to jump up that ladder of inference that we've talked about before.
Yep. Because
they're on their phone, that means that they care more about their phone than me, and that means they don't care about me at all.
Right.
I mean, that's probably not true.
Right.
They care about you maybe deeply, but they want to take you in bits and pieces. They don't want to be, never able to look at the phone. Mm-hmm. So somewhere the answer's in between.
Yeah.
So how do we get there in a way that's effective with them? And I think it's a very fair question to ask, practicing curiosity and not judgment. It's like, can we have a time with no distractions that's more than 10 minutes sometime? Yeah. Can we go to a certain event and you not be on your phone?
Yeah, or is now a good time for me to tell you something that's important to me? And yeah, I mean, I think it's just asking the questions and honoring what the response might be and being willing to accept a no, now is not the time, or, I need to delay this until later, not attributing a judgment to it, but just saying, okay, I'll just be curious and trust that time, that appointed time, whenever it may be, is the time that the conversation needs to take place.
Well, and you can be specific on the boundaries of it also and set clear boundaries. I need to talk to you before you go to bed. I need to talk to you by the end of the day. Whatever language you use in your home or in your organization, I need to talk to you before you leave today.
Yeah.
When it's convenient to you, just come by my office or whatever. I think that's a better negotiating ploy than stepping into someone's office and saying, I need your full undivided attention right now,
sure,
when they're on the phone.
Sure. Well, so going back to that digital environment, if the workplace is exclusively online, work is being done through online meetings or on the phone, you don't have the privilege of being able to see somebody's response, posture, body language, etc. And you've got the sense that they don't have time for you, they don't have margin for you. How do you respectfully communicate, hey, this is really important. I need you, and I need you to give me some margin, but you're not in that position to have the freedom to meet later in the evening or whatever the case may be because of time zones or, a whole host of problems that can come up with the online work environment.
I think then you can, I can tell you what I do is I set the expectation or attempt to of here's what I'm working on. Mm-hmm. Here's why I need an answer from you, and here's when I need the answer, and let them figure out and prioritize in their own way when they can deal with the situation.
Yeah.
And back to, we talked a couple sessions ago about, not feeling listened to or decision making, et cetera, like that. I may not have made the decision yet. And, for me, until something's due, I'm probably not going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so, you need that PowerPoint from me? Okay, when do you need it by?
Right.
Because I'm probably, if it's due by the end of the day on Tuesday, I'm probably going to be working on it
At the end
at
of
4
the day
o'clock
on
on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
You know, and being realistic with that. I think you build trust when you say, you know, look, turns out that the deadline is tomorrow morning by 8. So you've got the evening if you choose.
Yep.
And giving people permission and a little bit of slack when you can. Look, if you give other people grace, then they're going to give you grace.
Right. Well, you know, and I guess, again, curiosity, not judgment. Some people may work really well at a time when you don't work well. So you're going to have those night owls that they will, you know, crank things out in the late evening hours when you are done for, you're dead asleep. And there's always kind of that assumption like, well, if they don't work on the time frame that I am the most, you know, productive in, then certainly they're not getting quality work done. And so that's a guard I think we have to watch out for as well, is that judgment about when somebody's time is most important.
Especially to them.
Yeah.
Because we can't make assumptions like that. We most often think that everybody thinks like us.
Sure.
And by definition, nobody does.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. So curious to hear from you all. You are more than welcome to drop us some comments in the, you know, platform where you're watching or listening to this. You can certainly contact us through the website, curiositynotjudgment.com. Does that resonate with you about trying to establish one better step in the listening trifold that you have put forward? You know, if you're listening at a level 3, can you bump it up to a 2? If you're at a 2, can you do a 1? If you're a 1, I guess you just do a 1+. I don't know. But does that resonate with you? Is that something that you can experiment with and report back on and share how that's going? You know, or have you had some other successful ways of doing better listening, doing better communication at work or at home? Certainly would always love to hear some of those. So, all right, we'll sign off for now and circle back around next week. And by all means, let us know if you've got feedback. Always love to hear from you. So until then, have a great one.
Take care.